Hi, I'm Greg Hill with wearechange.victoria.org and Freedom Free for All TV. We've just finished the screening of Into the Fire, produced by Press for Truth, and we're here with the film creator Dan Dix, live on Skype video. He is in Toronto, and Dan, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be with you. We have a sellout crowd here today at Gorgeous Coffee House here in Victoria, British Columbia, and so we're very thankful for the film that you've produced, and the group here would like to ask some questions. So we'll get started, and we'll tee it up with our first question. What were your feelings? You interviewed quite a few people during the course of the making of the film, and of course so many things were happening. But one thing that really struck me was the gentleman that didn't have a leg. He was and he actually had his leg removed by the police when he was taken into custody, and he said he was a former government official. Looked like you went to his home and interviewed him. Could you maybe speak to that a little bit and what that was like for you on a personal level?
Yeah, for sure. That was a very touching story. This was an elderly gentleman who, as you say, was an employee of the government of Canada. I believe he worked for the Canadian Tax Revenue Agency or something like that. And he was simply supporting his daughter, is what he was doing there. His daughter wanted to attend the G20 protest, and so he was there in solidarity with his kids, just supporting his daughter when he got caught up in the mayhem. And as you see from the footage, he was very, very mistreated in a terrible, terrible way. And so I thought it was incredibly important to get out and speak with this gentleman so he could tell his story, because I think that's a little bit of the case of what happened with the G20 in Toronto. Is incredible atrocities happened at this event, and we only managed to capture a fraction of that on film. But what I wanted to do was bring a bit of the personal touch to it, and so I went out and I reached out to some of the people who were affected by this, and John Prine was one of the guys who I managed to set up an interview with, and he told us a very, very compelling emotional story about when he was basically attacked by the police for no good reason, completely ripping off the poor man's leg and forcing him, suggesting that he should crawl his way to the squad car. Absolutely terrible what happened there, but I'm glad that he was able to tell his story to people and get it out there so that people could learn just what sorts of things actually took place at G20 Toronto.
Wonderful, thanks. Well, we'll invite our next question.
Hi, Dan.
Hi.
Patrick Blue here. We are Change. Good to see you again. Hope you come back this way again soon.
Yeah,
I wanted to ask you, the G20, obviously, it opened up a lot of eyes, not just civilians, but police officers. Have you had a chance to talk to whether any rank, whether it's cadets or top ranking, to see if it had opened their eyes, if they have looked at policing a different way, if it were to happen again, would they question orders? And maybe even some of them even change their mind about being a police officer if this is what it's coming to. Basically, what side would the police be on when things really go down?
Absolutely. I have been contacted, actually, by some Toronto police officers who have contacted me through email to tell me that a number of them have seen my films. In fact, Into the Fire was kind of instructional viewing. A lot of guys at 52 Division in Toronto were instructed by their police chief to actually watch the film. It was part of their what they had to do for work. They were told to watch the film, and I was contacted by some of them who said, you know what, me and some other guys on the force here are completely in support of what you're doing, and we want to back you 100%, and we believe in what you're doing. So yeah, I think there are you know, some good guys in there who realize, who saw the film and realized that something major went wrong, and they want to you know, do right by it. So, you know, we certainly did not want to paint the police in a bad light. That was not our objective when making this film. We simply wanted to present the footage and allow the audience to make up their mind, but you know, the footage speaks for itself, and a lot of the cops were completely out of line. And I know that a lot of other officers around here realize that it puts a bad name on the police force in general. So again, our intention was not to make the police look bad in any way, but certainly it did have an effect of having certain guys say, you know what, we saw what you did, what you presented here in this film, and we're very thankful that you did, and we support you 100%. I've had that from about 3 or 4 cops now.
Sweet. All right. Thank you, Dan. Pass you off.
Hello, Dan.
Hi.
Hi, my name is Brad. I'm with We Are Change in Victoria here. It's good to see you. I met you once before. Yeah, but briefly when you came to Victoria. I was curious about your friend, Mr. Veach, Charlie Veach. Is that right? He was incarcerated, and a couple of times, I believe. What is his status now? Is he pursuing any lawsuits, or what is his? He made some interesting statements after his incarceration. I was wondering, how is he and what's going on with him?
Yeah, he is currently involved in a lawsuit, and he is suing the Toronto Police Board and I believe the government of Ontario, I think. So that is actually still in the works. I don't think it's being settled yet, but I can't be. I'm not positive about that. I don't know if he's actually had a result come of it. As far as I know, there's only been one person who has received any kind of justice from the system, and that is a man named Adam Nobody, who the police officer who bashed his face in with the baton actually was arrested and charged with assault with a weapon, and Adam is now going to be getting some money for that. Now, in the case of Charlie Veach, I know he was pursuing that, but I don't know where they're at in the court case. I know he was going for it, but I think it's, as you know, these are often a very lengthy process. So I think he's still trying to get justice for some of the things that happened to him. But as far as I know, it's still ongoing.
I see. Okay. Thank you very much.
Hi there, Dan. My name's Adam.
Hey. Hi.
I really enjoyed watching the film. Perhaps I had seen it for the first time about a year and a half ago, and I certainly was glad to see it tonight. I think it elucidates many of the current and ongoing problems with members of our, I guess, task force. Really, namely, their widespread behaviors remaining in deference to the course of action and leadership of the masters they serve, and forgetting about the autonomy and volition of the individuals they're supposed to serve in the process. And I see, when I watch it, I just remember about sort of protective factors and risk factors I've learned about in forensic psychology, and they're not just applied to criminals, they could be applied to police officers too. And we have all these widespread measures now, such as the PCLR psychopathy checklist revised, and they're used on police officers these days. But then I've heard other rumors about purposely choosing police officers with low emotional intelligence. So I'm curious as to what you've heard about. It seems like Canada is way better with this. The U.S. is more in dire straits, but it seems in Canada there's a lot of efforts with this. Professor Hare from UBC is from Canada, and their widespread use of the PCLR to gauge against psychopathy personality, antisocial personality disorder in police officers. But then I've just heard all these things about purposely selecting low emotional intelligence traits such that they would lack the empathy and not respect another person's individual agency, rather engaging to despicable behavior. What have you heard about this sort of?
Yeah, no doubt that they're psychologically profiled, and it has been proved that in some cases, I know in the United States, some may even be refused a job for having too high of an IQ, in fact. Now, in the case of the G20 in Toronto, I think what we had happening there was you had 22 different jurisdictions of police officers coming in from all over the place. So in Toronto, we have police officers coming from Calgary and coming from Quebec and coming from all over the place. So these guys are not answering to their normal authoritative figure, their normal boss. They are now out of town. They are listening to another boss, and I think maybe that contributed to some of these guys doing the things that they were doing. They got away with not having their name tags on, for instance, and they got a lot of away with a lot of things I don't think they would have been able to do, but it's because they came in from all over the place, and perhaps that made them feel that they could get away with doing certain things. So I think that had a big part to do with it, is simply police overstepping their jurisdiction and feeling that they could get away with certain things.
Right, that does make sense. That's a very good explanation. And I mean, a lot of people could argue they appear stoic and strong and dutiful, but when you see the blank, flat faces in response to the pain and suffering of others, you realize it's almost as if a lot of them have the psychopathic personality, and they're just there to collectively be psychopathic.
Mm-hmm. You know, in my experience, I have found that a lot of the older police officers are a lot easier to deal with. It's the older gentlemen who are calm and courteous and cool and collected. I find it's the young, 22, 23-year-old, fresh on the force, beefed up, crew cut, ready for action kind of guys, hotheads, who you have to be careful of, who are fresh with power on their mind. So that's just in my personal experience. Now, again, one police officer does not paint the picture for all, and so certainly there's always going to be a few bad apples in every bunch.
Right. I understand that a lot of people are anxious to ask more questions because you're a great wealth of information, and we love the video. Thanks very much for everything. Take care. Bye-bye.
Hi, Dan. My name is Mark. I'm with We Are Change Victoria here. Hi, this is the first time I've seen your film, and I must say it was very well done. I really enjoyed it. Very thought-provoking. Some things that came across to me. One was the proliferation of cameras. Fortunately, they can be used for good or evil, and it seems to me that it's just very fortunate for Truth that as many people have cameras as do and use them. It surprised me a little that the police in what looked like a war zone in this film didn't confiscate and break cameras. I don't know if any of that happened. I'm curious about that. But one of the more important things that I wonder about is in the way the police officers or peace officers, whatever they are, it didn't appear that they approached the situation in peace. Particularly in those last scenes. For example, the gentleman that had his artificial limb torn off, and that's assault. And my understanding of our Canadian Bill of Rights and our Charter of Rights and Freedoms is that we're all equal before the law. And that certainly was not demonstrated in that situation. I wonder if that's being addressed in this class action lawsuit.
Absolutely. There's reason for the way that the reaction happened on Sunday, when you saw what is now an infamous scene of hundreds of people being kettled at the intersection of Queen and Spadina, people being trampled by horses and police, and you've seen it, the riot footage at Queen's Park. That was a emotional reaction to what happened the day before. And the day before was when the so-called black bloc tactics were utilized in downtown Toronto, setting the police cars on fire, which of course is a bunch of theater, but it played into the psyche of the police officers so that, the very next day in their minds, everyone is a suspect, everyone is in trouble, everyone is dangerous. And I think they were instructed, before going out that day, to look at the footage, to see what these big bad people have done, and to take no mercy. So I think they themselves were manipulated and conditioned into reacting the way that they did. And, any good officer would know to leave emotions out of it, but emotions ran high that day, and the Canadian people suffered because of it.
Yeah. One last quick question. Is there any chance that this film can be put into mainstream media?
I certainly would hope so. Yeah, there's always a chance. You never know, things happen. Believe it or not, this was accepted into Korea's International Film Festival, and so I got to go to Korea to present the film, and it was quite an experience being in South Korea there showing my film on the police state. But if that can happen, then maybe it can get on TV or on the mainstream media. I certainly hope that would happen. So you never know. I mean, we put it out there, open source. We're hoping people will pick it up and air it. It has actually played in some TV stations in Europe, just not yet here in Canada. But it has aired in England. It has aired in a few places in the Middle East, actually, but not here in Canada or the U.S. yet.
Well, that's terrific. I really appreciate what you're doing. Good work. Thank you.
Thanks.
Hi, Dan. George. We are changed, of course. I'm curious. With what happened, with what you were showing that happened in Toronto, and it caused an awakening, is that awakening starting to mushroom? That's my question. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the G20 had an undesired effect for the global elite, if you will, in that it woke up your average, Sally Soccer Mom and Joe Sixpack. The average person sitting around here watching this can no longer deny that something is fundamentally wrong and something went wrong. So yeah, I think the events of that weekend and subsequently the film managed to wake up certain Canadians to these issues that they were never before aware of. So yeah, in that sense, maybe a little bit has backfired on them because it has caused people to wake up and question some of the things that are going on. Certainly.
Thank you.
Hey Dan, my straw name is Henry, and my question tonight is about, I just want to know how you feel about that one officer who said that there was no civil rights in that particular area.
Yeah, that was a shocking clip. Just to hear that guy, I believe he said, yeah, you have no rights here, or the charter does not apply. I'm paraphrasing now, but when we came across that footage, I was blown away by it, and I contacted the person who that happened to, and just asked him, hey, can I include this footage in my film, because it's unbelievable what that guy said to you.
Yeah.
And I think that was one of those things, that was one of those key moments in the film where people were shocked by the mentality that these police officers had. And we had this understanding here in Canada that these are peace officers, they're trying to help. This isn't like it is down in America, but those are the kind of clips that emerged throughout the G20 weekend that opened up people's minds to the police state, which is emerging here in Canada. So yeah, thank you for bringing that one up. That was that clip was powerful to me as well, and it just went to show just how bad things are getting.
If that isn't a huge wake up for everyone, then I don't know what is. Thanks.
Yeah,
Peace.
Hey Dano, how's it going, man?
Hey, good man.
Good to see you. It's Paul here. I got a quick question for you. A little bit of advice. You coming from the East, you've got a lot of experience. So knowing what we know about false flag terrorism, and knowing what we know about factual police provocateurism, and knowing where we know the New World Order or the elite or whoever you want to call them, the bankers, where they're going with humanity in the global police state, what advice can you give to anybody watching this show on what to look out for, what to look out for if you see something happening? I know that you recommend bringing your camera out and taking a picture, which is awesome, but what would you recommend? What do you know that has brought up a red flag for you, what might look like an agent provocateur or a setup of some kind of staged event?
Well, when the media starts pumping out a lot of fear, you know that that things are being put in motion. When certain events begin to transpire, like within the last year here in Canada, there was a number of instances that all came about. There was a train potentially being blown up, derailed from Toronto to Montreal. A couple of guys are still on trial for that. There was the other Canada Day, so-called Canada Day bombing. There was just a number of different things that have to this day not been proven to be true, yet the mainstream media pounced on it and managed to convince the condition, if you will, the minds of the masses to believe that there is an actual threat. So you don't even need an actual threat to be present, but you need the perception of a threat to be present to know that there's something brewing. So, you know, a good sign is to pay attention to what the mainstream media is saying, and if they're ramping up the fear state, then there's a reason for that. It's to condition Canadians to be prepared for anything, so that when something does happen sometime in the future, we're all already going to think terrorist is going to be the first thing that's going to pop into our head, because it's been so ingrained into our minds by the Toronto 18, by all these recent ones that we've seen over the last few years. So when the media starts crying foul and starts screaming, beware, beware, fear, fear, that's a good sign to get your cameras ready. Make sure you got lots of batteries, make sure you got lots of cards, and get ready to film, and keep an eye out for whatever is to come.
Awesome. And so you'd think, from your opinion, from what you saw at this event here, the G20, what would you say, if you could say it in like one breath, was it a total agent provocateur of the Black Bloc with the RCMP, or is that just speculations?
Yeah, you know, I think it's a number of things. It's a whole culmination of things, and I think every G20 is like that. I refer to it as a traveling circus of tyranny, because that's really what it is in every single town that it goes to. And certainly the Black Bloc tactic is a method that follows G20 everywhere it goes. So, you know, if you want to consider that a false flag, I mean, it very well could be considered that, because they are going around and duping people and kind of creating this clash that is needed. It's all about order out of chaos. It's all about generating that madness, generating that chaos, causing the problems so that you can offer the solutions. Here in Toronto, you know, we got so many more CCTV cameras up now. They went up during the G20. They said it was just going to be a trial period, and sure enough, they're all still here. All these things came based out of the madness that we saw at the G20. So it's all about order out of chaos, and that's how they operate.
Awesome. Thanks, Dan. Keep up the good work as alternative media out west, and let's work with you more. Thanks a lot, man.
Yeah, thank you.
So Josh Steffler, We Are Change Victoria, I want to thank you so much for your time. I have one question from the crowd before I get into my question, and the question is, in your opinion, what can we do to prevent this from happening in the future?
Well, my main goal for how to prevent this from happening in the future was to show people that it happens in the first place. I know it's an easy thing to say, is that awareness is key, but really, it really is key. Awareness at this point is absolutely what is needed. I think not many people realize the kinds of things that goes on at these G20s every single year. I don't know of any other film really, other than some of the things we witnessed in Seattle. Can't remember the name of that film, but I think at this point we still need people that can learn how to be prepared before this thing comes to their town, and they can start to see the red flags. They can arm themselves with cameras, and they can be ready in the future just by watching the film.
Perfect. So my question, yeah, are you still there? Can you see me?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. We're just having some lag here, I guess. My question is, with the Black Bloc there, are you aware of a man in Toronto named Greg Renouf and his work in exposing the Black Bloc and their insidious infiltration into almost every movement And it's almost like these guys are working as agents for the New World Order to bring the chaos so that they can, then the Iron Fist can bring the order. Are you aware of Greg Renouf? Do you talk to this guy at all, or?
I'm very aware of Greg Renouf. We've hung out many of times. I mean, we're often at the same protests, and I've been following his work for years. And to be quite honest, I think he does a bang up job. A lot of people have issues with what Greg does. He gets confronted a lot of times at these protests because people say, you know, you're going after activists. You're trying to expose people who are you know, trying to fix things here. And all he is doing is merely pointing out some of the problems that he sees within these activist communities that are being coerced, that are being infiltrated. And he's doing very important work about simply exposing some of the infiltrations, some of the problems that he has found. And, you know, he'll often, you know, if you want to get to the bottom of who's really running the show, sometimes it's just a matter of tracking the money. You know, you follow the money, you find out where the funding is coming from, you find out who's paying for certain things, and then you start to find some very, very interesting and telling things about who's running these things. So, yeah, I support Greg. I like his work, and I encourage people to check it out, because to this day, everything that I have seen from him has been pretty bang on, I must say.
Yeah, we're big supporters here, a lot of us too, and seeing Alex Hundert in the film there at the end really brought Renouf back to mind. With that being said, you know, of course, We Are Change Victoria never supports violence, never supports that kind of action, because it just gives the police state exactly what they want. It just gives the government the tools that they need to crack more heads, and it's not productive. It's, if you got something to say it without a mask, say it in a non-violent way. Smashing businesses is not the way to solve any problems that these movements are based on. With that, I just want to thank you, Dan, and I want to tell our viewers that if you're interested in alternate media, please visit Dan's website, PressForTruth.ca. Support alternate media. Share his films. Go online. He's got numerous films on the New World Order, on North American Union, police state, and share his films. Obviously, they're all open source, I believe he said, or Creative Commons. So I believe most of them are on YouTube for free as well. And I want to thank you again for your time, and remind our viewers to check us out at wearechangevictoria.org and Freedom Free for All Television. Thanks again, Dan. Look forward to doing some more stuff with you.
Great. My pleasure, guys. Keep up the great work, and I'll see you out there on the West Coast sometime again soon.
Perfect.
See ya.
Take care.